Haiti's government says the death toll from Hurricane Matthew has risen to more than 330 people. The Caribbean's most powerful storm in almost a decade swept through Haiti on Tuesday. Severe winds and flooding destroyed tens of thousands of homes. There are widespread power outages and collapsed trees and bridges have cut off several areas. Aid agencies say people there are running out of food and water. The storm then made its way to Cuba, and winds of 220 kilometers per hour pounded the country, leaving homes badly damaged. The eastern city of Baracoa was the most severely hit area, but there were no fatalities reported there because the town had been largely evacuated ahead of Matthew's arrival. Now, Hurricane Matthew is approaching the southeast coast of the United States. While it's weakened to a Category 3 storm, the U.S. National Weather Service says it could be the most powerful to hit northeast Florida in more than a century. Governor Rick Scott has warned it could cause catastrophic devastation. Let's go to Steve Mort now, who's live for us in Orlando. Steve, when is Hurricane Matthew expected to make landfall on the Florida coast?
Well, the latest update from the National Hurricane Center puts Hurricane Matthew at a Category 3 in intensity. It's very close to the coast now, but the latest track that we've seen actually doesn't put it officially on the coast as a landfall, but it is close enough that it's going to cause a lot of damage as a major hurricane Category 3 strength. It's going to graze the coastline, bringing very high winds. And where I am in Orlando, it's sort of getting to the nearest approach. We can see at the moment, you might be able to see, but I can certainly see from my vantage point, very, very large trees swaying in the wind. We're getting certainly tropical storm force gusts here at the moment, and also very heavy rain, squall showers. We're in a dry patch right now. So we're nearing the time when the storm is set to be its worst in this area, and we're just going to have to wait and see exactly what happens. After it comes close, it'll keep moving up the coast. We'll have to check the forecast sort of in the coming hours to see whether it wobbles to the left or to the right. But at the moment, at least, it looks like it might not formally make a landfall.
Now, President Barack Obama had declared a state of emergency and evacuations were ongoing. But did most people comply with those evacuation orders?
A lot of people did comply with the evacuation orders. Whether or not most did, well, that kind of sort of remains to be seen. You know, a lot of the evacuation shelters are actually here in Orlando. They're in government buildings, buildings that are built to withstand hurricane and severe storm force winds, usually in schools or other government buildings. And we know that a lot of those shelters are full up. They're at capacity. There are some places, however, which can house hundreds of people over the course of severe weather that are not at capacity, and that does seem to indicate that many people who were in those evacuation zones chose not to evacuate. And we know that from authorities over on the Atlantic coastline, that is in fact the case, that a lot of people, probably hundreds and thousands of people, decided that they were just going to ride this out on those barrier islands that make up the Atlantic coastline of Florida. And the Governor, Rick Scott, when he declared a state of emergency, said, look, hey, you know, if you decide to stay there, even though we've declared a mandatory evacuation, then crews will not be able to get to you. Emergency services will not be able to get to you if you get cut off or if something happens to you. So that's basically the warning that's gone out. It appears that a lot of people have heeded it, but again, some people chose not to.
And what's likely to happen over the next few days? Are other states likely to be affected?
Yes, that is the case. It looks like as the storm moves to the north, it's likely to bring very strong winds and very heavy rain to Georgia and to South Carolina. In South Carolina, there were mandatory evacuations issued. A lot of people heeded those evacuations. We saw huge traffic jams on the highways heading away from the coastline. Basically, authorities closing down the highway one way to make room for more traffic to head inland. And then, curiously, what we notice after that is the Hurricane Center predicts that the storm will make a loop and actually head back towards Florida at the beginning of next week, probably as a tropical storm, when it seems at the moment, at least this far out, that it could hit Miami. That would be a very unusual situation, but this is a very unusual storm. It's one of the longest-lived Atlantic storms in history for this time of year, so certainly one more record is probably to be expected.
Steve Mort will continue monitoring the situation for us in Orlando. Thank you for that update.